for anybody to imagine who's sitting wherever they are in their homes, that you're sitting in the palace and you felt a sense of hatred for yourself. That doesn't compute in our Princess Cinderella Duchess mind. You understand?
Okay, so
that is the fairy tale.
It is the fairy tale. But then comes the realism that you actually you didn't marry to get the fairy tale. You married a man. You fell in love and you married the man, and then you've got to come to terms with the fairy tale. Now, it's not a fairy tale. It's real life in there. Well, so to speak. They think it's real life in there.
Okay. You know? So when you moved into the palace, were you surprised? I mean, the way you described as you describe it in the book, I'm thinking it's a little dark room down the hall at Buckingham Palace.
This is a haunting interview for me, because when you consider the fact that in 1996, when the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, first gave an interview to Oprah Winfrey, it was after she wrote a book about her experience with the royal family. At this point, of course, Princess Diana was still very much alive. And she described the feelings of loneliness and the depression, the virtually suicidal thoughts that you would have at this point in this very icy, cold, frigid family. But it goes much further. It goes a lot deeper than that, because along with that, you hear Oprah actually describe how vicious the tabloids are here in the United States, and nobody in the U.S., well, should I say, there aren't many people in the U.S. who experience the full, attack machine, the entire infrastructure of the tabloids like Oprah Winfrey has experienced it. Oprah has been viciously attacked over the years, and so she has intimate knowledge of how painful that can be. Over the years, many people in Oprah's life have sold her out, including her own family members. And some of the worst possible things that a relative could say about you is the type of attacks, the type of accusations that Oprah experienced. Now remember, they're paying people for these stories. And so whether they're exaggerated or simply just made up, and maybe there is some crumbs of truth to it, but either way, none of this stuff was relevant to Oprah's talent and contribution, but it was this hell-bent pursuit of destroy her reputation by any means necessary for profit. And remember, in those days, they were still making their money from the newsstand. It wasn't a matter of clickbait. It was the newsstand. And I remember those covers of the Star magazine, the Inquirer. They went after Oprah like you couldn't believe. And because she's no longer doing the talk show, they have kind of laid off of her. Of course, there have been some other things that she's been accused of recently, but for the most part, there's just not as much interest in Oprah's life or lifestyle. That being said, there were so many things that was just like, I quote Oprah, the aha moment. It was so, oh God, it was reaffirming. It just, whatever you already have known about the painful experiences that the Duchess of Sussex had while living with that family, thanks to Oprah's interview of 1996, it's almost like a premonition of Meghan's experience. It was almost like a premonition.
Women suffer all over the world from a lack of self-esteem.
And that's what I've tried to say in that, is that, look, I've been in the most privileged position. I've been on that pedestal. I've been. You can't get.
You
more
had
of
a
dream.
tiara.
I
Let's
know.
say no more. You had a tiara.
I know.
You had the diamond tiara.
I know.
Do they let you keep the tiara?
Yes.
Really?
They let you keep the tiara.
Well, the Duchess says that things were different for Princess Diana. Why do you think things were different for her?
I think that she was just very good at what she did. She was the perfect princess. She is the perfect princess. I think that she just glides, really, and she's very, very tall and very beautiful, and she's been through a huge amount of discovery in her own self and a huge amount of problems with her own life.
Mm-hmm.
But I always think she just seems to get it right, you know.
But she went through her struggles, and
Big time.
yes,
Big time.
and the tabloids, who are vicious. They're bad here, but they're vicious over there.
Absolutely.
Have tried to kill her, literally.
Yeah, they have.
Uh-huh.
And I think that that's what's so exciting about two best friends like Diana and I, is that we can grow together and transform together.
Did you
we
know?
Support each other.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, but did you know how miserable she was?
No, she was very good at not showing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was there and living there, I sort of got to know more and more the pain she was in. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It is very cruel and very painful when you are going to try and find the feelings within to be in such a public stage.
Okay, I know a lot of people who don't understand, because I know we live in a country, we're capitalists who believe that if you just had the money, everything was all right. But most people don't understand. If you have all that stuff, why don't you just behave yourself, do what you're told, keep the 30-watt bulbs, you know what I'm saying, and just play the game and go along with the program?
You could do that.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that, and if that's what suits you, that's what suits you. But I'm afraid for Diana and I, we learn. We're like rivers. We want to learn more. We want to go around the next corner. We're hungry for life. We're very curious. I speak for myself here, not for her, because she's not here.
To do this, to have this life, means you ultimately lose yourself, whatever yourself is.
Yeah.
That you can play the game, and it is the biggest game there is it not?
Yes.
That's basically what it is.
You go out there.
You have to play by the rules.
Play by the rules. I must explain that the British press at the moment is completely and utterly cruel and abusive and so invasive.
Cruel and abrasive. Cruel and abrasive. She said the British press is cruel and abrasive. Those are the words of Sarah Ferguson. And doesn't she know, right? This interview is just mind-blowing to me, and I'm surprised that nobody's really making a big deal out of it. I mean, hearing Oprah say that they're vicious and they were trying to kill her. Now remember, this was recorded before Diana died. Everything that we know about the tabloid press today, of course, those of us that are old enough, we knew about it then, but I'm an American. I didn't know the extent of the suffering that Diana was going through. I did see it here, but I didn't see the extent of it as it was over there, because at the time, remember, we didn't have social media. So seeing the Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday, the Sun, the Express, we wouldn't have seen those as often back in those days as we see them now. And now they're just a keystroke away. You just click on the app or whatever and you're in. But I've never experienced that before. So I knew that Diana was pursued. I knew that there were all of these photos and such. But it's so much more available to the masses of people in the world compared to what it was back in the 1990s. And that's a huge difference. And plus, the revenue for these tabloids are actually coming from the digital, not from the actual print papers. I don't think they could possibly print enough and sell them to make the profits that they're making from the ad revenue from the digital sources. So again, there's a difference there. But I suppose the moral of the story is just play the game. As Oprah says,
you ultimately lose yourself, whatever yourself is. 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 You ultimately lose yourself, whatever yourself is.
you ultimately lose yourself, whatever yourself is. I'm going to make a video one day, and I'm going to give you some more of my theories about what I think happened with that family. I'll do that. Just you guys remind me in the comments. I will. I got ideas. None of this is a surprise. And as Harry said, he was afraid of history repeating. That was his biggest concern. And so he decided to take his family out of that situation. I want you to notice something too. When they were living in that horrible servants' quarters called the Frogmore Cottage, there was all of these reports. Do you remember that Meghan was heavily pregnant? And there was non-stop, multiple stories a day where they were trying to assess how the Sussexes were taking advantage of things with that cabin. Or, yeah, listen to me call it a cabin. It's supposed to be a cottage. There is a Frogmore house, and then there's Frogmore Cottage. The house is a beautiful place, but obviously it was not under consideration for the Sussexes. But it's a beautiful house. And then there's the Frogmore Cottage, which was actually a collection of apartments that were subdivided and used by the royal servants. The Queen has what she calls grace and favor residence. Grace and favor means that she can put up a cousin, an employee, anybody she chooses can find a place in the crown property, should you be so lucky as to have been granted this privilege by the Queen. Sometimes people stay there well into their retirement. Sometimes they have to move around, or they may even have to move out to another type of living arrangement. But they're called grace and favor. So for a long time, people who lived in the Kensington Palace compound, including people like the Queen's cousin, Princess Markle of Kent, all of those people lived in that compound. And even Princess Diana had this huge apartment there. Princess Margaret, I believe the Cambridges took over her apartment. So it's kind of like public housing for the Windsors, okay, if you will. And I've been there when I went to the royal wedding, when I was on that big European vacation, or as some people like to call it, the Grand Tour. I went there, and the palace is very, it's like a collection of buildings. You have a little Georgian from Wren, and then you have the, I guess, the Tudor part of the building. So there's remnants of some of everything there. And then there's the sunken garden, and that's where Princess Diana's statue is supposed to end up when, you know, allegedly Harry's going back for the unveiling. God, I hope he doesn't. But yeah, it's a very secure place. It's like the grounds of any of the Queen's residence, and she does have the grace and favor. Now, because of public criticism, some time ago, they began to charge rent. So Prince and Princess Michael, they had a place in the country, but once they had to pay rent, from what I hear, allegedly, they had to sell that place in the country because they could no longer freeload off of the taxpayers and the sovereign grant, and of course the Queen. So things do change, but the change is very slow and incremental, so you don't see tremendous change unless perhaps someone in the Commons yells, "Why don't she pay her taxes?" And then the Queen may voluntarily pay her taxes, which, as you know, that's a true story. But before that, the Queen was paying no tax whatsoever. All a part of the privileges of being Queen. So yeah, that's it. I couldn't stop hearing Oprah's voice. I could not stop hearing Sarah's voice. It was just like it was playing over and over in my mind. I'm like, my God, this really was said, and then eventually it did happen. So leave your comments because I'm curious to know what you think about the entire thing. Also, please like, share, and donate. Also, if you can, please start your own platform. I'm not afraid of the competition. Start your own platform. We need a few more voices out there. If you have a cell phone, you have a platform. If you have a PC, you have a platform. So let's make this happen, okay? Don't ask me how to do it because it would be very difficult for me to give you those instructions from so far away. But there are so many how-to videos on the YouTube that anybody could do it. Okay, I'll see you guys. Thanks for listening.